They say your college years are supposed to be the best of your life. For Ryan, a freshman just starting his first semester, it felt like the beginning of something new. A new city, new friends, new freedom. His dorm room was small but comfortable. 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 dressers. His roommate was a quiet guy named Kyle, who mostly kept to himself. It was ordinary enough, at least at first. The first week passed without much trouble. Classes, late-night food runs, the usual chaos of campus life. But Ryan started noticing things at night. Sometimes when the lights were off and Kyle was already asleep, he'd hear noises. The faint creak of footsteps, scratching sounds like nails dragging across the wall, and once or twice, whispers, so soft he couldn't make out the words. At first he dismissed them. College buildings are old. He told himself pipes shift in the wind. What else could it be? But then those sounds began seeping into his waking hours too. He'd find his desk chair dragged away from the wall, his books scattered across the floor, his clothes strewn about the room. When he finally worked up the courage to ask Kyle about it, his roommate barely looked up from his phone. "Oh," he said casually, "that's just the other guy." Ryan blinked. "The other guy?" Kyle just smirked. "You'll see." He tried to shake it off, telling himself it was just a joke. But a few mornings later, he woke to something impossible. There was another bed in the room. Not a cot, not something dragged in from storage. An actual bed, perfectly made, sheets tucked in like it had always been there, right against the far wall beyond Kyle's desk. Ryan rubbed his eyes until they burned, convinced he was imagining things, but the bed stayed. When he confronted Kyle about it, Kyle's expression didn't change. "Yeah," he muttered, "that's his, don't touch it." Ryan's throat went dry. "Whose?" Kyle didn't look up. He just repeated the same words. "The other guy." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He kept glancing at the bed. Empty, perfectly still. But in the mirror across the room, he saw something else. There weren't 2 reflections. There were 3. Himself, Kyle, and a third figure, standing by the bed. His breath hitched, tall, thin, its face pale and distorted, as if the glass couldn't decide what it was supposed to look like. Ryan's heart stopped. He spun around. The bed was empty. The room was silent. But in the mirror, the third figure was still there. He got a closer look. In the dim light, he saw what appeared to be a man, though emaciated, almost skeletal. His skin was unnaturally white, stretched tight over protruding bones, and his eyes, sunken and dark, stared straight ahead. Ryan stumbled back, afraid to breathe, afraid to break the silence. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he would have thought it was a nightmare. But when he turned to leave, his foot caught on the rug, and as he fell, he saw it again. The third figure reflected in the glass. It was smiling, its teeth long and sharp like the fangs of a snake. When he finally scrambled to his feet, his hands shaking, he found another note lying on the floor where he'd fallen. "Don't let him in." The message was scrawled on a piece of Kyle's notebook paper. It was Kyle's handwriting. Ryan spent the next week on edge. Every creak of the floorboard, every sigh of the wind through the window pane sounded like footsteps in the dark. He barely slept, and when he did, he dreamed of skeletal figures with sharp teeth and whispering voices that promised pain. He considered switching rooms. He talked to his advisor, but she told him that was out of the question. Rooms were assigned for the entire year. If he broke his lease early, he'd be fined. And then one evening, Kyle returned. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, eyes hollow, skin sickly pale. "Where were you?" Ryan asked, surprised. Kyle flinched, then quickly recovered his composure. Just around campus," he lied. "Right." Ryan studied him for a moment, searching for signs of trouble. But seeing none, he dropped the subject. But that night, while Ryan lay trying to sleep, he heard footsteps pacing in the room. Of course, he didn't dare open his eyes. Instead, he squeezed them shut tighter, burying his head under the pillow. But then he felt a tug on his blanket, a gentle pull that sent goosebumps erupting all over his skin. This time, Ryan did open his eyes, and there in the darkness, he saw a shape emerge from under the bed, tall and thin. It clambered onto the mattress. Now close enough, Ryan could see more detail. The creature's face was elongated, almost triangular, its chin receding into its chest like a turtle's, its hands, bony fingers tipped with long black claws. As it moved, the moonlight glinted off something silver dangling from its neck. A locket. Ryan watched in disbelief as the creature unfastened it. Then, ever so slowly, it opened it. Inside, nestled against a faded velvet lining, was a picture of a boy, a young boy holding a teddy bear. His smile was infectious, lighting up his face, erasing the harsh angles of his skull. When the creature saw Ryan watching, it slammed the locket shut, scrambling back into the corner. Ryan, unable to tear his eyes away, continued to stare. As dawn approached, the creature emerged again. This time it didn't retreat. It sat up, propped itself up on an elbow, and beckoned to Ryan. Its hand was a gnarled claw, yet somehow its gesture was strangely inviting. Tentatively, Ryan climbed out of bed and walked toward it. As he neared the creature, it rose and moved away from him. It floated across the room toward the wall and pressed its back against it. Ryan circled the bed, mesmerized. Was it shy? Did it want him to read its palm, trace the lines on its gaunt, veined hand? But the creature suddenly recoiled as if burned. It hissed, its voice a raspy whisper. "No, don't touch." It gestured wildly at the bed, then at the wall behind it. Ryan hesitated, unsure what to do. But when the creature began to pace again, agitated, restless, he followed. He reached out to stop it, but his fingers passed right through its arm. Desperation welled up inside him. He wanted to help, to comfort whatever this thing was, but he couldn't get close. It was like trying to touch smoke. Just as he began to panic, the creature stopped. It turned to him, its face a mask of sorrow, and spoke again. "I am stuck here. Help me." The next day, Ryan awoke with a start. Had it been a dream? No. The scent of mildew hung heavy in the air. The walls were scratched and gouged as if clawed at from the inside. But most disturbingly, the third bed was gone. Had it been real? A figment of his imagination? Panic seized him. He ran to the bathroom and stared at his reflection. Was he insane? Should he report what he'd seen to the college psychologist? Suddenly, he noticed something strange. Staring back at him from the mirror was a face he didn't recognize. It was his. Or maybe it was someone else's. Same brown hair, same green eyes. But the rest, the jaw, the cheekbones, the haunted look in his eyes, it was all different. He touched his face, tracing the delicate planes, the high, prominent brow. Who was this person? Was he always like this? Then it hit him. He rushed to his desk, flinging open the drawers but finding nothing except a half-empty tube of toothpaste and a crumpled towel. He remembered now. The previous night's events came flooding back. The scratch marks on the wall, the creature's pleas for help. But why? Why was he helping it? He could still hear its voice echoing in his mind. "Help me. I am stuck here." Suddenly, Ryan understood. He wasn't just observing what was happening. He was part of it. He raced to the door, fumbling for the handle. He needed to get out of this room, out of this building, as far away from this place as possible. But when he finally forced the door open and stepped into the hallway, he froze. The door behind him vanished. There was nothing there, no door, no frame, no doorknob. Ryan screamed, his voice echoing down the empty corridor. But his cry for help was lost in the vastness of the old building. No one came. He was trapped in a prison of his own, a single room with 2 beds and a ghost from another time. A few weeks later, the dorms were emptied out for winter break. Students went home for the holidays. But Ryan didn't go anywhere. He stayed in the room, watching the 3rd bed. He learned the creature's name was Thomas. He was 24 when he died in the room 100 years ago. He'd been a student at the college, or at least he'd been studying there. That much was certain. Thomas was trapped between worlds, tethered to the room by some unseen force. Ryan was drawn to him, compelled to help him. But how? One day, rummaging through Kyle's belongings, Ryan found an old diary. He flipped through the brittle pages, discovering entries dated nearly a century back. Thomas's handwriting was elegant, looping curls and flourishes adorning each word. In one entry, Ryan found the answer he'd been seeking. Thomas had written about a ritual, a way to sever the ties that bound him to the room, to move on to the afterlife. All he needed was a silver locket, the same one Thomas had shown Ryan, filled with soil from somewhere outside the room. With newfound determination, Ryan set out to break the curse that had trapped Thomas for so long. But as he searched the grounds for the perfect spot to gather the dirt, he realized the magnitude of what he was undertaking. He wasn't just solving a mystery. He was mending a broken soul, setting a lost spirit free. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that story. If you did, please subscribe to DarkWhisper AI. Leave a comment. The next episode will be up soon, don't miss.